am back with another video, continuation of disfellowshipping um, amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. And we're going to be talking about part 3, which is the comeback and the return. Probably be a little short video, as I only have experience with one of these topics. The comeback. The comeback, what I mean by that is that once you're disfellowshipped, once you've been announced as a disfellowshipped person, the issue is now you have a choice to make. You can feel sorry for yourself. You can try to accept that you've been disfellowshipped, and then from there you can try to get back in the good graces of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, for those that don't know, again, I don't know who the viewers are potentially, because there may be some that are curious about Jehovah's Witnesses or curious about disfellowshipping. So, the comeback is the time period which you have to show yourself repentant, which involves a few things from what I remember. The number one thing was you had to remain going to the meetings, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, where this is where a lot of people have the PTSD, right? It is very awkward to be in the witness program, be able to talk to everybody, and then now all of a sudden you can't talk to anybody. So it's basically like going to a family reunion and you can't talk to anybody. That's basically what it feels like, right? You have all your family or your family at the event, and then now you go to the event and you can't talk to anybody. So this is pretty big, right? Because at least at the time that I was attending the meetings, I would go. We had meetings Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, so that means you had to go to the meetings every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and you couldn't talk to anybody. So, very disheartening, right? Again, no bashing. This was a means for the congregation to keep the congregation clean, right? They didn't want any bad association or non-repentant people to be amongst the amongst the congregation, right? So they felt that by you not being able to talk to anyone, this is keeping the congregation clean, and it was up to you basically to consistently go to the meetings, consistently show remorse, right? I think, if I remember, I think the earliest time that somebody could come back was, I think, 6 months. I may be mistaken, 6 months or a year. It definitely was at least that. You couldn't just be disfellowshipped and then come back the next week, right? It doesn't work like that. So at least 6 months to a year, basically being able to be being shunned. So another point to this is that you couldn't talk to your family. Like a lot of witnesses, we were told basically, if one of your family members was disfellowshipped, keep the conversation to a minimum. You couldn't talk about anything spiritual. And this is where a lot of people had issues, myself included, because in my case, almost everybody's case is that you most likely have a husband, spouse. Again, if you're young, your mom, your dad, your brothers and sisters, you basically couldn't talk to them, right? You would walk in, and again, some families were different. Like some were very strict on it, where they walk in a house and absolutely no words. I know that Jehovah's Witnesses have a video of disfellowshipping and how the parents basically were got a phone call from their daughter, and they saw the daughter calling on a caller ID, and they didn't pick up. And again, this is out there, right? I mean, I may try to see if I can link the video, but this is the experience, right? So the comeback was going through that process. And if I recall, you had to write a letter saying that you want to be reinstated, and then the elders would have a meeting about that, and then they would come back to you. So for me, my personal experience with this is when I was disfellowshipped, um, I was breaking up with my wife at the time. So there was a lot of drama between me and her. And, living with my parents, um, my grandmother was a witness. My grandfather was not a witness. So my grandmother followed the religion. And, coming out of being married for 2 years, being young, not a real job really at that time. I think I was working at AT&T selling phones. Actually, back then it was singular, singular selling phones, and didn't really have a lot of income. So for me, um, the hard part was having to live with a parent um, that was trying to get me to go back to the meetings and be a good son. Uh, and once I started realizing some lies that the wife had told me, and some of the things I was seeing with the religion, I ultimately kind of faded. I mean, I was already disfellowshipped, right? But I initially started going back to the meetings, and it was hard. Um, you know, the the hard part about this is, like I said, and again, for those that have not experienced this, this is a very hard topic for me, amongst probably others, is that I go from having hundreds of friends that I can just call up and go out to now zero. Um, I mean, there was a couple of friends that still talk to me that they really shouldn't have talked to me. I won't name any names, but for the most part, it's hard to deal with, right? I've already went through a divorce. Well, we got it annulled. Um, Breaking up with a wife, having to deal with the legal matter because of the crime she said I did against her. I think I mentioned that in the previous video. She said I tried to kill her, her two other kids, and my daughter. So I had to get a lawyer, had to go to court, and because of the restraining order in place, I couldn't see my daughter. I mentioned that in the previous video, where pretty much I missed my daughter's first steps because I had the restraining order. So dealing with all that, then coming home, getting disfellowshipped, then not being able to talk to all my friends and about it was hard. Like I said, there was no YouTube back then, so it was didn't have anybody to really talk to. What I did was I had a couple of friends outside the religion, right? So what I ended up doing was, hanging out with them, right? I need some friends to get my mind off of stuff. So that's ultimately what I did. And then I put myself into work again and, started from there trying to build or have some kind of normal life. Um, so that's kind of the only experience I have with the comeback, right? There's two parts: the comeback and the return. So the comeback is the real issue that people have. This is the hard part, right? Because again, you're cut off from everybody. This is what everybody has the problem with. You're cut off, you're shunned, and only if you do the things that I mentioned, go to the hall, every single hall. I mean, every single meeting. Back then it was Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. You had to be consistent, and over the process of 6 months to a year, then you would be able to submit a request in writing that you wanted to be reinstated, and then the elders would meet, and then they would determine whether or not were eligible to get reinstated. Whew. So that was a lot, a lot to deal with. The return, I kind of talk about it briefly. The return, again, I don't have any experience with this. The return, though, was something, or is the end all be all, right? So you've done all the things that were asked. You wrote your letter. You've been reinstated, and so you are announced as being fully reinstated. Now, obviously, for me, when I was growing up in the hall, there was obviously a few people during the course of my stay there that got reinstated. So it was a happy time. I know one of my closest friends still. you know, a lot of people were disfellowshipped a couple times and came back, right? I won't mention their names, but I remember a few of my friends that came back, and it's like, you know, I finally was able to call them, we were able to go out, and, you know, they always said how they felt about being disfellowshipped and then coming back, and it was always that, you know, feeling of achievement. You know, I've won. You know, Jehovah has helped me get back, and you're back, and I can talk to you now, and all that. So I haven't personally returned. Obviously, you know, it's been 20 years, but during the course of my childhood, I've had a few people return. Um, so I know what it feels like to have somebody return and be able to talk to them. It's a good feeling, right? And again, this all trickles down to the power. Um, I hate saying brainwashed, but brainwashed or cult-like features. But that's kind of what a lot of people used to say to me when I was younger and being disfellowshipped. Where the like I'll give you another example. When my grandmother died, I was disfellowshipped, and you know, I can't. My aunt is still in the religion to this day. So when she died, it was, you know, all my family from the East Coast basically were going to meet, right? And there was an issue where I couldn't meet per se at my aunt's house because I was disfellowshipped. She was in. My other family didn't understand, and they were pretty upset that they didn't understand why I couldn't be with family, or I felt awkward for being at my aunt's house. And for us, it's like the same old, like, you know, if you're not in the religion, you don't understand, and it's hard to explain to somebody that is not in the religion. It's like, well, why can't you just go over there? Now, I know that in some circumstances, I eventually did go over there, but it was, you know, everything was kept, you know, strictly by my mom's, you know, funeral and etc. For respect, right? To me, even though my other family didn't understand, there's a mutual respect that I still have for the religion, right? I know some people may not like that or not, but to me, like I said, this is not a bashing video. I'm just giving you my experience about being disfellowshipped, right? So, in my experience, I still respect it, where I'm not going to go against the feelings of a family member that's still inside. So, for me, it was easy to just say, okay, hey, if I had to stay out, then I'll just stay out, right? So, um, it is a lot for outside people to understand, to take in. Um, and again, if you are in it, you understand, right? So that's my take on it. In the next video, I'm going to talk about some ways to safeguard yourself, right? We're not trying to get out of being disfellowship, but I think there are a few ways to help yourself if you're looking at this video and you're contemplating fading. You haven't been disfellowshipped, because that's really the key, right? The key of surviving, it starts before you get disfellowshipped, right? Or something like that. Whatever action that you did that was bad, basically. So stay tuned for that. Again, if you liked or enjoyed this video, my experience, just like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Other than that, see you in the next video.